Hello and welcome to tonight's discussion about the Masons. Throughout history, people have feared the unknown. With amassed wealth and power, groups have always incurred hatred. Groups with a strong moral code that do not compromise have often come face to face with adversity and bigotry. The Masons have, in their history, suffered murders, extermination orders, and moral bigotry, theft, and many other oppressions. The following terms have even been used to describe the Masons: secret, hostile, a religious cult, conspiracy-driven, power-hungry, all of which are false, have gone unexplained for the most part. With the informational age that we live in today, research suggests that Freemasons are not a secret religious group. Some of the main reasons for this are that Masons originated with a functional working group. The visibility of the Masons is ever present and active in public service today. And the moral code does not focus on a spiritual reward, but rather the betterment of an individual and society. Today we'll be discussing about the Masons and why the common misconceptions are false. We will also focus on three main points to dispel the belief that Masons are really a secret religious group. Masons have developed from an active working body and not from divine intervention. That's point number one. Point number two. Visibility of the Masons is consistent with that of other socially minded groups such as the Kiwanis or the Lions or the Rotary clubs. Masons, or point number three, Masonry is not a religion because of the lack of a spiritual reward such as after death, heaven, hell. Now, the Masons foundation comes and starts with a man named Hiram Abiff. Hiram Abiff is the gentleman who is actually called from Solomon to build Solomon's temple. He is the active Mason over Solomon's temple's building. With Hiram Abiff, he learns certain codes and signs and passes them from Masons to Masons to distinguish between the different levels of Masons, such as the entered apprentice or the fellow craft or the master Mason. These Masons can then travel and be able to present these signs or tokens and not have to pass any formal tests, but that way they can tell which one they're going to be at. Now, this one comes from Second Chronicles, and this is where the story of Hiram Abiff is found and about his group. Now, Hiram Abiff actually takes and uses one of the first groups or one of the first active working environments for such a group as a union, and it's one of the first unions ever unionized and used. Now, from Patagorsky, we actually researched in J.D. Fidel's The History of the German Masons. These Masons were actually used in 1091 AD. In 1091 AD, there is actual documentation of when the Masons were founded. Now, today we see that the speculative Masons actually come up and branch into what is now known as the Masonry branches and the Masonry trunk. We also have the Knights Templar, which we'll discuss in a second. The active Masonry starts down here. The reason it doesn't have a date is there's actually no clear version of when active Masonry was first began. Now, with Masons have always been out in the open, hence Hiram Abiff being able to be hired for a monetary build. Now, Masons being in the open, they have been called upon to build some of the world's greatest wonders. They've also been called upon to do some of like the temples, and they've also been described as doing the pyramids as well. Now, in today's age, Masons provide a different service. Some of the things that we have in today's services are groups such as the Shriners. The Shriners actually do the Shriners hospitals. The Shriners, most people recognize them as the people who drive around in the parades with the funny little hats and the little cars. These groups are public servants and that actually have their own hospitals to deal with cancer and treatment of children. Now, also, the Knights Templars have contributed to what we have in today's, and they're a group from the past of the Masons that have played a huge role in our banking system today. When the Templars were first associated and going through and working, the Knights Templar actually created a banking system to use in the Crusades. You would deposit your money in London, go on the crusade to Jerusalem, and then pick up your money in Jerusalem to deposit and to use while you were there. In 13 AD, the the Templars were then stamped out. The Templars that had an extermination order, so they went underground, and then they joined the Masonic body and ended up meshing in towards where they went today. Now, Masons have served from the some of the foundation of even some religious groups. Because the Masons are a moral group and morally minded, they often get confused with their religion. Now, some of the different groups that they have been foundations for are like the Relief Society of the Church of Latter-day Saints. The Church of Latter-day Saints was founded by a former Mason, and some of the groups and some of the religious principles or moral principles found in this were then pulled over into the religious side of it. Now, Masons, the reason why they are not considered a religion is there is no heaven or hell. The betterment, or the focus of the betterment, is for the individual to become a better person and influence the people around them, not for the eternal glorification of the Spirit. In closing, research has shown that Masons are in fact not a secret religious group. The Masons do not hide from the public view. They were founded by a naturally evolving group or a union, and then their morals fall into the immediate benefits for the person individual, and it is not on achieving a spiritual reward such as religions may do.
When were the Masons originally founded?
The Masons, some have tried to actually put a specific date on when they were founded, and history starts as far back as the building of Solomon's temples. Others have claimed that morals have started the foundation, or morals are the foundation of Masonry. So therefore, since the foundation of morals, or the beginning of the world, therefore Masonry has been since the beginning of the world.
How do you become a Mason?
There are really only two ways to become a Mason in the first place. First, you have to know a Master Mason, then just ask him. Second is to go online or stop at one of the local meeting houses or chapter houses and ask for admission or an admission form and a request for consideration and membership. Thank you for your time tonight. I hope you've enjoyed and learned just a little bit more about Masonry.